Alright, so today's question for Ask Lee is from Fatass Squirrel, and it's all about how people curse themselves and how thought forms are created which create a negative impact in their lives, and about bending energy to our favor. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Okay, on to the questions then. And as always, if you have a question for the Ask Lee segment, then just leave them in the comments below and I'll add them to the list. If you are listening on the podcast, you can leave a voice note if you go to anchor.fm/Lee W. Johnson. Okay, so the first question is from Fatass Squirrel. There is a saying, miserable people curse themselves by default. Could you explain how one may accidentally curse themselves or inadvertently develop thought forms which then go on to provoke suspiciously unlucky events to transpire in one's life? And what is your opinion on luck and bending chance or circumstance to your favor? Okay, so, well, two questions there really, isn't there? Okay, so the first one, how would someone curse themselves or create a thought form which would create negative influences in their lives? Quite simply by believing it. Many curses that are put on people by others are actually just psychological tricks. Person A is the one receiving the curse and person B is the one doing the curse, and therefore person A believes that person B has the power to do that to them. And all person B needs to do is just say, you're cursed. And person A will believe it so much that they will start creating the circumstances in their own life. And this happens in a lot of cases. People believe they have been cursed and therefore they start creating it. And when I say creating it, what really happens is they may get one slight turn of bad luck. And they put that all down to the curse that has been put on them. It may just be just a random thing that happened, but because they believe they've been cursed, they think that's part of it, or they may fall ill or something like that, and they believe it's all part of the curse. Now, when that happens, that belief kicks in, and they start to look out for other things which may be going wrong in their life. And every little thing, they will nitpick at every little thing and question whether it was a curse. And because the belief is so strong, they'll believe it is the curse, and it will start to snowball. Now, we have to bear in mind here that when we continue in a certain pattern for a period of time, our brain rewires. So what usually happens in this case is a pattern starts to form in the person's life. One tiny little bad thing happens, they put it down to the curse, and then another bad thing happens, and it continues and it snowballs and it gets more and more and more. And after a while, the brain rewires itself to follow the same pattern. So it keeps creating the same patterns over and over and over again. So this is basically how somebody can curse themselves. And as I say, this happens in a lot of cases. In terms of the thought forms, very similar. The thought form can create from this belief, the strength of the belief. It creates emotions. Those emotions can become a thought form. But in probably more cases when it comes to thought forms, we're looking at people who are in fear. It's quite often somebody who has a person in their life who they are afraid of. It could be an abusive relationship. And what will often happen then is we create a thought form in many senses because we feel we deserve that. Again, it's a psychological thing. We feel we deserve the pain and the anxiety and the heartache that we are being given by this person, and we create a thought form which then does the same thing. That's some cases. In other cases, a person may create a thought form in order to protect themselves, in which case it will fight back at the person they are afraid of. But in most, it is that guilt, and tied into that guilt is the fear and everything else, and that those emotions themselves will start to create a thought form which will externalize those feelings. So you're externalizing the fear, the guilt, the shame, the anxiety, and all of these things, and that thought form holds all of those emotions, and those emotions are yours, but they're negative emotions, and therefore it kind of hits back at you in a negative fashion. And these thought forms can get quite violent. They can, some poltergeist activity is actually thought forms, and astral parasites are often thought forms. It's just these stray thought forms that have, been let loose. But some poltergeist activity can be thought forms. I know a few people who have had poltergeist activity, had books thrown across the room, lights going on and off, whatever it is. It's they kind of put it down to poltergeist. Now, in most cases, when it comes to poltergeist, the first thing you kind of do is ask if there's a teenager in the house, because again, it's emotions, and those intense emotions which get riled up in a teenager during those different phases in life, the transition periods. They're intense, they're incredibly intense, and those emotions externalize, and they start to create thought forms which can start throwing things around. So that's the first thing. Is there a teenager in the house? If there isn't, then you start looking at trauma. You start looking at whether the person is in an abusive relationship or something like that. And quite often it is a thought form which has been created. And a lot of people in that situation will actually do things like try smudging, or practices and techniques which supposedly are said to get rid of negative energies, ghosts in the house and things like that. They'll start doing all these practices, all these things, and people for some reason just go straight for smudging. And what usually happens then is the activity gets worse, because it's not a ghost you're dealing with, it's not a negative entity which is external, it's something which is connected to you. So as soon as you try and get rid of it from your environment, you can't, because it's attached to you. It is you, it's part of you. So you have to start looking at trauma, you have to start looking at abusive relationships, you have to try and figure out where the problem lies, and usually this results in asking the person to go for psychological help, for therapy, and then working closely with them in that, getting the feedback, and then you start to figure out where this is coming from, and then you can deal with it. But that's usually the case in that instance. All right, so the second question was, and what is your opinion on luck and bending chance or circumstance to your favor? We're witches. We do that all the time. I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't do this, and it's been around for years and years, this neo-pagan idea that you shouldn't do something for yourself or to gain. You shouldn't do magic to gain for yourself. And I think that really boils down to when the Charmed series, the original Charmed series came out. you know, there was just that whole thing of you shouldn't do magic to bring gain, which is ridiculous. I mean, we're witches. I mean, the whole purpose to magic is bending energy to your will. So yeah, luck and bending chance. I'm not really sure we can bring luck into this. I don't think luck. I'm on the fence about luck. I'm not really sure if there is such a thing as luck. Because I'm always debating the principles of free will versus fate. So when it comes to luck, we have to examine if it was fated, or if it wasn't, if it was just, you know, quite possible that what we view as luck is just something which was supposed to happen. So luck, I'm not really sure there. Bending chance or circumstances to your favor, that really is magic. I mean, that's what magic is. No matter what it is, if it's to try and win the lotto, which I don't advise. It's a bit of a shaky one, and you're probably now wondering why I don't advise that. I have mentioned this before. It was when I was doing the sigil magic videos. Gordon White actually explains this really well. If you take something like the lotto, where just take some random numbers, there are 2 million people playing the lotto, and without magic your chances of winning may be 1.25 million to 1. With magic you reduce that, and then your chances may be 650,000 to 1. But that's still a chance of 650,000 to 1 to win the lotto. That's, you know, a bit of a long stretch. So, you know, using magic to win the lotto, I wouldn't really say. Using magic to win something in the lotto, maybe. You know, you might get a small bonus or something like that. But the actual, the big prize, it's a bit difficult. But we may use magic to get an interview, to get the job that we went for an interview for over somebody else or over another group of people. The chances there are better. The 5 people may be on the short list for the job. That's what would it would be 4 to 1, wouldn't it? Because you're one of the people. Using magic reduces the chances, so it may be a chance of actually getting the job. That's personal gain. It may be increasing your business. It's personal gain. It may be healing yourself. That's still personal gain. So it is bending chance or circumstance to your favor. So really that's just what magic is, no matter how you look at it and how you try and twist it. Somewhere along the line you're going to be gaining, you're going to have personal gain. So that really is it. Okay, so the next question is from Deborah, but that's all about death, the soul, and spirits of the deceased person. So that's going to be a bit of a lengthy one, so I'll save that one for next week, and I'll end this one today. Alright, so again, if you've got any questions for Ask Lee segment, just leave them in the comments, or leave a voice note on anchor.fm on the podcast, and I will add them to the list. And until then, I'll have a good one. I'll see you next week. Cheers for now. Bye bye.